Hello again. Sorry about that. Something happened and I lost internet connection for a sec and I got disconnected. So sorry about that. I'm back. I hope that you can hear me loud and clear. If you can, just type something okay or sure, hi, whatever, so I know that yeah, you can hear what I'm saying. So once again, welcome everyone. I hope that everything will go quite smoothly from now on. As I was saying, my name is Radek, and I have a pleasure to conduct this webinar for you. Tonight we are going to talk about, well, the title is Business Beasts. Sounds a bit scary, but, well, actually, these are just some quite useful expressions based on names of animals that are quite commonly used in business and financial English. So the plan is that we'll go one by one in alphabetical order through these terms that I've prepared for you. And yeah, let's have a look and let's start. So of course, the bestiary of business terms. Bestiary is just a list of beasts, right? Not a commonly used word, but let's start. So the first letter, well, in alpha, of course, is letter A, and our first term, of course, starts with A, and this is alligator spread. First of all, what is a spread? Because I assume that we all know what an alligator is. And I don't mean spread like something you put on your bread for breakfast, like butter or any kind of creamy cheese. Basically, spread is the difference between two prices, right? So if you buy some stocks more cheaply than you sell them, then the difference between those prices is the spread and possibly a profit for an investor, right? And alligator spread actually eats all the profit. So basically, that's why it's called the alligator spread. How it works. The charges involved in such transaction are higher than the profit made. So basically, the spread eats up all the profit because the fees you pay for this transaction to some brokers are higher than the profit that you can possibly make. So how to prevent alligator spread from happening? Well, investors should check commission schedules quite carefully to avoid, well, the profits, having the profits devoured or eaten by alligator spread. So that's basically it, the alligator spread. First term on our list. Do we have any shareholders in the audience? Like, is anyone playing the stock exchange? Maybe you have some experience with alligator spread and, well, not being able to earn despite selling your stocks for higher price than you bought them. So that's alligator spread. The next term on our list has a beautiful bear here, and the term is a bear market. So basically, a bear market occurs when the stock market enters a decline, a long-term decline. So if you have a fall of about 20%, we can say that we're entering a bear market. So everything is going down. And we can talk about four distinct phases of bear market. So the first phase, when the bear market actually kicks off, we have high prices and high investor sentiment. So basically, investors are quite optimistic and happy, but they start to collect their profits and they exit the market. Then the second phase, stock prices, trading activity, and earnings, corporate earnings, start to fall early. The same happens to investor sentiment. Investors are getting more and more pessimistic. Some of them might even panic. The market indices reach new lows, and dividend yields reach historic highs. Indices is just a plural form of an index. You can say indexes or indices. This is much more formal and comes straight from Latin language. So that was the second phase of a bear market. And then the third phase, the prices and the volume of trading starts because speculators enter the market. And the final stage is when stock prices continue to fall, but a bit more slowly. The pace is lower. Investors come back to the market. They find prices low enough, and they react positively to some good indicators. And then the bear market gives way to a bull market, which is the opposite of bear market. So we can talk about the bull market when the price of shares on the stock exchange is rising, and quite similarly, we can talk about 4 phases of a bull market. So when this phase cycle begins, quite opposite to bear market, prices and investor sentiment are low. There's lots of pessimism and worry about future prices. Then in the second phase, stock prices and trading activity, together with corporate earnings, begin to grow, to increase a bit. And the same happens to investor sentiment. Investors are getting more and more optimistic. In the third phase, market indexes reach new highs, and trading activity continues to increase. And in the final stage of a bull market, we have lots of IPOs, initial public offering, which is when a company enters the stock market. We call it an IPO, initial public offering. It happens to trading activity and speculation. It's all on the increase. So bear market versus the bull market. So that's the B letter covered. Let's move on. Wow, what a beautiful cow. And we have a phrase, cash cow. So that's a very interesting phrase, one of my favorites. Basically, well, we know that cows give milk, and it's kind of like, yeah, they give it all the time. So the same happens in business language. If something is a cash cow, it's an item or service that provides you with a constant flow of income or funds with very little maintenance. But once the initial financial outlay has been paid off, then the cash cow generates funds which you can use for your other activities, just like cows, which produce milk for many years to come. So that's a cash cow. I guess examples can be like McDonald's here and Big Mac, which is like a cash cow, quite popular burger, if not the most popular one in the world. Cash cow. Then dragon bonds. What are bonds? Well, this is like fixed income securities issued by governments when governments want to borrow money from people whenever they need additional funds. And dragon bonds are securities issued by some Asian nations other than Japan. They are usually denominated in US dollars, and they are quite attractive option for foreign investment. And that's what they are trying to do, to attract foreign investment because such dragon bonds are considered to be quite stable investments, quite secure and safe. And they were introduced at the beginning of 1990s by the Asian Development Bank, and quite commonly used in countries like China, for example. And they are aimed at specific markets where investors are usually willing to lend money on more favorable terms that might be offered domestically on the domestic market. So dragon bonds. If you feel like investing in some Asian bonds, why not? Supposedly quite secure. Okay. Then we have an elephant curve, which we can see on the graph below. Basically, that's the term created by former World Bank economist Brian Milanovic and Flackner. It was used to describe the world income growth, and it pinpoints the gain in household capita between 1988 and 2008, which was the period of so-called high globalization. If you look at the shape of the line, it really looks like a body of an elephant. Yeah, we have two axes on the graph. The vertical axis, income growth in percent. The horizontal axis is like percentile of global income distribution, from poorest on the left to the richest on the right. And 2 decades, as you can see, it starts at the very bottom, very poorest, locked out of growth. Then, more or less in the middle of the graph, we have rising incomes in emerging economies, mainly China. And the line goes steeply down to the lowest point, like decline of developed world middle class. And of course, booming global elite on top. So the richest people. And yeah, I guess the name is quite good for this graph, because it really looks like an elephant. So hence elephant curve, describing yeah, nicely the period of high globalization between 1988 and 2008. The next phrase is eager beaver. Well, very nice picture of a beaver, which is quite an industrious and hardworking animal, I guess. And the same refers to this term. An eager beaver is who is extremely zealous about whatever they are doing, about performing their duties. They always want more, and they always ready to go the extra mile to do something. I guess in every office we can meet eager beavers, always willing to do more. So yeah, so an eager beaver is someone who habitually takes on more tasks or works harder than others. Just like a beaver, who are associated with hard work, chopping down trees and building shelters and dams. Yeah, quite industrious little creatures. Yeah. We have an example of a sentence. He was an eager beaver when we first hired him, but lately he's been much less productive. I guess that's what usually happens. Okay, so that's eager beaver. Somebody who is very enthusiastic about their duties and work. Yeah, zealous is just a synonym to extremely enthusiastic. If you're crazy about something, you're zealous. Okay. A fat cat. Well, the picture doesn't show a really fat cat, just a I guess normal-looking cat. But who is a fat cat? It's not always a positive phrase when you call somebody a fat cat, but it is often used to describe rich and greedy people who are extremely wealthy and own a lot of assets. And basically, they use the work of others to get rich and richer. So basically, sounds like a good definition of a capitalist like 100 years ago. Also, we can use this phrase to describe some executives, like top management in corporate world, who earn too much. Well, not in their opinion, but in opinion of all the other people. So these are fat cats. Some examples of use we can see here are like, why on earth should we have to line the pockets of the fat cats? That's a rhetorical question. And the fat cats who run the bank, or fat cat corporate types. So very pleasant term, but yeah, there are some fat cats on top floors of some office buildings, right? Then we have a gorilla, which is, well, extremely huge ape. And the same refers to the corporate use of this term. A gorilla is a quite powerful company, which has the biggest market share in a given industry, but doesn't have a monopoly. Yeah? So there's the strongest player, but still there is some competition. And because it's so big, such a company, which can be called a gorilla, well, is more able to take additional risks without that they will lose some customers or customer base. So that's a gorilla. Such a company usually has large control of the pricing and availability of its products, comparing to their competitors in a given industry. So if anyone wants to compete with such a gorilla company, which is extremely powerful and has the largest market share, then I guess it's a good idea to use some clever marketing, or just to differentiate your offerings if you want to compete with gorillas, which, yeah, sometimes can end up really badly. So that's a gorilla. So quite similar to the real world use of this term. Big, powerful company that almost has a monopoly, but not really. Then let's move up into the sky, and we have a bird of prey called hawk. So when it comes to financial language, a hawk is a policymaker or an advisor who tends to put high priority on limiting or curbing inflation, and has nothing against seeing higher interest rates just to achieve that, to curb inflation. So hawks are not really concerned with economic growth. What they really care about is to keep the inflation rates down using whatever means possible. Apart from this financial use, hawk can describe any kind of advisor or policymaker who is not afraid of confrontation and actually supports a confrontational point of view, and not necessarily a peace lover, right? So we can call it like an advocate of aggressive political positions and actions. These are hawks. And some example of use, like monetary policymakers are all hawks now. Maybe not them, but the opposite of a hawk is, of course, a dove, which is a symbol of peace. And if we can call a policymaker or an advisor a dove, it means that they tend, well, less willing to support higher interest rates. They are not so obsessed with keeping inflation in check. What they really want in the financial world, like doves, such policymakers and advisors, is to well, keep low interest rates, believe that this will increase employment. So even if you say that inflation has few negative effects, such statement can be called dovish, which is a nice adjective from dove. And quite contrary to hawks, an advisor or policymaker who is dovish or who is a dove, well, they are in favor of conciliation, negotiation. They tend to avoid conflicts and try to solve situations in a peaceful way. So that's hawks versus doves. Let's move on. Jungle. The world is a jungle. And I guess this term is an ideal description of the business world, which is a place with quite intense competition, and where only the fittest can survive. Yeah, so there's the survival of the fittest in the real jungle, and of course in the business jungle. So we can say that life is a corporate jungle. Seed in the business world, it's a jungle out there. So yeah, not very optimistic, but quite true, I would say. That the world is a jungle full of ambushes and some dangers, and if you're not careful, you might be in trouble. So that's jungle for you. The next term, finally, some insect. We have killer bees. So basically, a killer bee, apart from being an extremely dangerous species of bees living in Africa, I guess, killer bees are individuals or firms that are hired to help a company devise a defense strategy to stop an attempted hostile takeover bid. Such individuals or firms, they usually come up with a plan to make the target of such a hostile takeover bid less attractive or as unappealing as possible, just to prevent the takeover from taking place. And yeah, such a killer bee uses some defensive strategies to keep a hostile takeover attempt from happening, from occurring. So that's a killer bee. Much more positive than in the real life, I guess. Next term, another bird on our list, a duck. Not a regular duck, lame duck. Well, if something is lame, well, in formal language, it means that it's not the best quality. Oh, it's lame, it sucks. But a lame duck is, well, an injured duck, a duck which is not 100% strong or somehow weakened. And the same in the business world. A lame duck is a company or an individual that cannot keep up with the rest of the market and becomes an easy prey of some bigger companies or predators lurking on the market. It's quite an old phrase. It was coined in the 18th century at the London Stock Exchange and was used to describe a stockbroker who defaulted on his debts, like unable to pay off his debts. It can also be used to describe an investor who makes poor trades or poor investment choices and loses out on profits. Such guys can also be called lame ducks. Okay, then the next term, we have the king and lion's share. Well, quite an international phrase, I would say, because the lion's share is the largest part of something, especially, well, a disproportionate portion. Yeah, it's quite huge, and there's not much left for all the other ones who'd like there. And this expression is even older than the lame duck, which dates back to the 18th century. This one is quite ancient. It comes from one of Aesop's fables about the lion who got a kill and took most of it. There was not much left for its fellow hunters. So although they hunted together, it was the lion who got the most, the lion's share. Look at the list of fellow hunters. We have an ass there, but this is just a donkey. So especially in older texts, an ass was used with the meaning of a donkey. It doesn't refer to any part of the body here. Some examples of use of the phrase lion's share. We take the lion's share of the profits and invest them back into the company. Sounds like a quite smart thing to do. And another example, we made a huge sale today. I gave the lion's share of the credit to my business partner because she did most of the work. That's very noble of the partner. Okay, so that's the lion's share. Next phrase, quite cheerful one, is monkey business. So the first meaning of a monkey business can be just playful tricks or jokes. No monkey business while the boss is gone. Well, it's natural that employees can behave in a little bit more relaxed way when the manager is not around. Another meaning of monkey business is a little bit more serious because it means illegal or improper activity or behavior. So that's definitely much more serious meaning. Let's have a look at the example. They looked at the company's portfolio, and it seems as if there is some monkey business happening in accounting. Sounds like trouble if there is monkey business happening in accounting. So that's the term, monkey business. Another animal that starts with letter M is a meerkat. A beautiful picture, quite cute. And the phrase here is a meerkat effect. So if you look well at the way these animals, meerkats, behave, sometimes investors behave in quite a similar way. So basically, if we can call investors meerkats, it's because they behave just like the animals they took their name from. So they keep checking their financial portfolios for any signs of bad news. So just like meerkats, such investors are hyper alert when it comes to sniffing out some information, especially negative information. Just like meerkats, yeah, they stick their heads up to look around for any kind of danger, just to check what's happening around them. The same with investors. They tend to look for information, especially when market conditions are changing. So that's called a meerkat effect. So hyper alert investors being extremely cautious and checking for any signs of changing market situation. The next term is a narwhal, which is quite a rare marine mammal with a kind of horn on its face. And the use of this term is quite limited because it was invented by some Canadian businessman, the CEO of a Vancouver-based company, Garibaldi Capital Advisors. The guy was called Brent Holiday, and he used this term to describe a Canadian technological startup valued at more than $1 billion and founded after 1999. So these are the two conditions that have to be met if you want to call a company a narwhal. Actually, there are three conditions. It has to be Canadian, has to be valued at more than $1 billion, and it has to be founded after 1999. And we have a quotation here from the creator of this term. And he said, "It's distinctly Canadian, found in the Arctic waters of Canada. I understood the narwhal's horn was to break through the ice because they're mammals and have to breathe. So that's a great metaphor." Yeah, so a narwhal is a Canadian tech startup valued at more than $1 billion, founded after 1999. Okay, so that's That's the narwhal. Another phrase, another expression, and another bird on our list. This time it's Ostrich Effect. So we had Meerkat Effect describing some specific way of investor behavior. Here in the Ostrich Effect, it's also a kind of way how investors can behave. But this time it's about ignoring the financial information or about pretending that such information doesn't exist. So it's like hiding your heads in the sand. Although I guess ostriches don't really do this; they don't stick their heads into the sand. But that's what the investors, some investors, when they ignore or they pretend that it doesn't exist. So we can call such investors risk averse. Yeah, so they don't like risk and they try to avoid any risk at any cost. So that's ostrich effect. Then we have quite exotic animal, a porcupine with lots of quills, also called spikes, on its back. So porcupine provision, and what that is, it's a clause in corporation's charter or bylaws, which is put there specifically to prevent a hostile takeover bid. So basically, it's supposed to make such a bid ineffective or more difficult or quite painful for the company who's planning to buy another business. And we have some examples of such provisions or strategies that can be used by a company to prevent being taken over by another business. And we have something called golden parachute, which is about giving top executives some lucrative benefits that will have to be paid by the acquirer. An acquirer is the company that is planning to perform this takeover. And then they need to be paid lots of money if they are discharged from their jobs after takeover had taken place. So that's called a golden parachute. No harm done. Green mail is another strategy, which is like purchasing enough shares of a company to threaten a takeover, and it forces the owners to buy the stocks back at a premium if they want to stay in business. So such a strategy is called green mail. We can also talk about Pac-Man strategy. I guess you all remember Pac-Man game from many decades back. And basically, in this strategy, the target company defends itself by threatening to its acquirer. Another strategy is the poison pill. So the target company defends itself by making its shares, stocks, less attractive to an acquirer. The safe harbor, when the target company acquires a company so horribly, onerously regulated that it makes the target much less attractive for the acquirer, and they usually think twice before buying such company. Strategy here is a scorched earth policy. Scorched simply means burned, like burned to the ground, scorched. So the target company defends itself by selling off its crown jewel, by selling what they have best, just to make themselves appear less attractive to the acquirer. So that's what we call a scorched earth policy. So these are just some examples of porcupine provisions. So a clause or provision and corporation's charter, which is has been put there specifically to prevent a hostile takeover bid from another business. Porcupine provision. Peacock Market, another bird on our list, quite beautiful and all, but just like a real peacock, a peacock market is a highly overvalued market with stocks overpriced. So it's just like a bubble that might burst, and then people lose a lot of assets. So it's like usually inflated by the central bank policy. Lots of vertical substance. So a peacock market, yeah, when peacock hides its tail, it's no longer so attractive, and the same happens on the peacock market, which is overvalued and inflated by the central bank. So beware of the peacock market. And back to insects, another phrase is a queen bee. This can be referred to a female in a managerial position who is, well, doesn't really encourage her subordinates' development, especially if these subordinates are female. So quite dominant person who's male and doesn't like other females in her corporate surroundings. So that's a queen bee. There can be only one queen, as we know. Okay. Red herring back into the water. Christmas is coming, so there'll be lots of different types of herring on the tables, I guess. But think about business phrases and business language. Hello, I'm back. Okay, so I thought there was a problem, but okay, I'm back. It's a red herring is actually a legal document filed by a company which is going to enter the stock exchange market. So before its IPO, initial public offering, and such document, such prospectus is called a red herring because it has to carry a special notice printed in red on its cover, and that's where the name actually comes from, a red herring. So a document, a prospectus prepared by a company before entering the stock market. And another meaning of red herring is something that intends to divert our attention from the real problem or matter at hand, something that's aimed at misleading us. So if you look at the example at the very bottom, when a murderer plants a knife in someone else's home to try to throw the police off track, the knife is an example of a red herring. So it's like a misleading clue, something that takes our attention from something important to something trivial, just to hide some real facts or to move public attention elsewhere. So that's a red herring. Either a prospectus prepared by a company before entering the stock exchange market, before IPO, initial public offering, or something that's supposed to mislead us or divert our attention from something really important. The next phrase, we are still in the water, another fish, a shark, and we have like three quite useful expressions with the word shark. First of all, a shark, quite dangerous fish, and the same in business world. A shark can describe a company that is trying to execute a hostile takeover. So it's trying to buy another company. Shark repellent. Shark repellent is very similar, basically it's the same as porcupine provision, the term we discussed a few minutes ago. So shark repellents are any kind of measures developed by a target company, a company that is going to be taken over to try to stop the takeover from happening. So golden parachute or scorched earth policy, the things we have already discussed, are also shark repellents, so porcupine provisions or shark repellents. And another phrase with shark is a loan shark. So basically, it's a person or institution who lends funds at illegal or exorbitant rates of interest. So basically, if you borrow money from a loan shark, you will be broke afterwards because the interest so high. Exorbitant means like extremely high, like out of our orbit, yeah, so high up. And what's more, loan sharks often back their lendings with threats of violence or damage, not only to health, but maybe also to a person's reputation, as a way to make sure that the loans are repaid. So basically, yeah, we should avoid borrowing money from loan sharks. Shark repellent, and a loan shark. Let's move on back onto the land. A tiger economy. Basically, it was used to describe some Asian economies, or economy of any country which is undergoing rapid economic growth, and progression of its living standards. Many such countries in Asia, like South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and we could also find a tiger in Europe, a Celtic tiger, which is another name for Ireland, green island. So that's tiger economy of a country and development. Dog, even a top dog. So that's human's best friend, as they say. And who is a top dog? Well, in business language, a top dog is a person or a group in a position of power, in a position of authority. And top dog acquired this power, this authority, through victory in some hard-fought competition. So nobody gave them this power, but they fought for it and they won it. Let's look at the example. My second interview with the company is tomorrow, and it's with the top dog. I'm nervous. Well, having an interview with a top dog can be quite stressful. So that's top dog. Another mythical and non-existent, actually, is a unicorn. And it's this phrase is actually quite similar to narwhal from a few minutes ago. Like narwhal can describe a Canadian tech startup valued at more than $1 billion. And unicorn is the phrase used mostly for American, meaning the US companies, from industries such as technology, mobile technology, or information technology, usually the intersection of all three sectors. So have very high valuations, at least $1 billion. So some years ago, at the beginning of their activities, I guess Google was such unicorn, Facebook, but yeah, nowadays they are the most powerful ones. So that's a unicorn, quite highly priced technological startup, which becomes really powerful. Back into the air, another bird on our list is a vulture. And who is a vulture investor? Well, vulture, being a bird, feeds on carrion, on carcasses, on dead animals, right? And quite similarly, a vulture investor invests in distressed firms, in firms that are in trouble, buys their assets or bonds, hoping that there will be a turnaround, and the vulture will be able to profit from this by buying some debt or shares of shares very cheaply for a very small amount of money. So yeah, that's what vulture investors do. They invest in weak, troubled companies, hoping for a huge profit. A wolf of Wall Street. I guess some of you must have seen the film, or maybe you've read a book written by well, Jordan Belfort, and the film was based on this book. So a wolf of Wall Street was one of the nicknames given to such powerful and cunning investors, or we can say a suave investor. It's like cunning. So this term just had to be on our list. So lots of wolf of Wall Street around, I guess, prowling in the dark. Next term, well, it's a yak shaving. Wow, nice animal. Guess lives high in the Himalayas somewhere, so like a mountain cow. And what is a yak shaving? This is a task that has to be performed in order to progress with a project, to prevent it from becoming stagnant. So yak shaving is something we just have to do in order to move on. It might seem an useless activity, but doing this will allow us to overcome some difficulties, and it's just a part of solving a bigger problem. For example, I was doing a bit of yak shaving this morning, and it looks like it might have paid off. So that's a yak shaving. Okay, I'm back. I hope you can hear me. Another technical problem, but it seems to have been resolved. Just as I was going to talk about our last term on the list, starting with Z, a zebra. Yeah, let's have a look. I hope that everything is working and you can hear me. So a zebra refers to an emerging company or movement which is looking to acquire some funding. It might also be a startup, but the most important thing about it is that it has been established by a woman or people from ethnic minorities. And yeah, so that's a zebra. Startup, young company organization started by a female or people from different ethnic background, usually from minorities. And that's the last term for today. So as you can see, there are many business terms based on names of animals. I hope that you acquired some knowledge watching those slides and listening to me. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And I wish you all a good evening and a happy holiday season, as this is the last English webinar this year from us. So once again, thank you very much and bye-bye. Have a good night.